A young girl named Polly Fossil was scouring a beach one day when she came across something strange. It was an Ammonite fossil, but unlike any she'd ever seen before. This one glowed with an eerie green light, and when Polly touched it, whoa, out popped a holographic ghost of some kind of marine reptile like a plesiosaur. And this ghost needed her help. It explained that it had been separated from its skeleton long ago and was now a restless spirit haunting the seas. The ghost asked Polly if she would help find its skeleton so it could finally rest in peace. Polly didn't hesitate. She loved puzzles and mysteries, and this was the greatest adventure she'd ever encountered. But how could she possibly track down the missing bones? Polly wasn't sure, but the ghost said that it knew just where to start. It beckoned for Polly to follow it on a journey along the coast and deep into the sea. They travelled over cliffs and through caves and eventually arrived at a wide sandy beach. The ghost pointed toward a spot under a rock and disappeared for a moment, then reappeared to explain. It said that before becoming a ghost, it used to glide effortlessly through the waves right here. This part of the coast was once an expansive ocean teeming with all kinds of marine life, including many different kinds of plesiosaurs. But what happened to its skeleton? All these years later, well, Polly thought maybe she could find the answer by looking at the layers of sand and rock. You see, she knew that different types of rocks and dirt often have different colors and textures. And this particular beach had lots of variety, not just smooth gray sand, but also reddish clay and even some white chalky rock. Polly had learned in school that each layer of sediment tells you something about the environment in which it was deposited. So she began carefully brushing away the sand to reveal the hidden layers beneath. Polly found that there were actually many more layers than she had noticed before, and that each transition from one to another was really interesting. For example, the grey sand was made up of tiny grains that had been worn down by wave action for hundreds of millions of years. It contained lots of fragments of other rocks and shells from tiny clams and snails. And Polly even spotted a few small pebbles that had tumbled in from the nearby cliffs. Then there was the red clay. Its color suggested that it had been made when the area was marshy and oxygen poor. Polly knew that in such conditions, iron often accumulates in rocks and becomes rust-colored. She also noticed that this layer had lots of little holes, which meant that it was full of burrows from crabs and worms. Finally, there was the white, chalky rock. It felt totally different from the grey sand or the red clay. Polly knew that chalk is mostly made of tiny single-celled plants called coccolithophores, which grow in warm, shallow waters. And indeed, the water here must have been much warmer in the past, since there were even bigger marine reptiles living here like ichthyosaurs and pliosaurs. But all of this was still not enough to help her find the ghost's skeleton. After a while, the ghost returned, and noticing that Polly was still digging in the sand, asked her how the search was going. Polly told the ghost everything she had learned so far, and the ghost replied, "That's fantastic. All of that is very important. Now I know you understand what kind of environment we're dealing with here. But to find my skeleton, we need to go deeper. The question is, how do we get there?" Polly pondered this for a moment. She had brushed away the top layer of sand, revealing older layers beneath. If she wanted to look even deeper, she would have to dig deeper still, and so she did. Polly dug down, until she reached a layer of solid rock. But this rock wasn't like the chalky white rock she had seen above. It was full of cracks and crevices and looked way older. Polly knew that no crabs or worm burrows could ever make a home in such hard and lifeless rock. Plus, the ghosts had told her that it had died and become fossilized when it was very young. So that meant that whatever rock it was now a part of had hardened before the ghost could grow very big. Could this be the answer? Polly carefully chipped away at the rock to remove some loose flakes, and underneath the rough exterior, she discovered something incredible. There were layers within the rock itself, like rings inside a tree trunk, and each ring was a different color. Polly realized that these layers were deposited in the water, one on top of the other, over many, many years. And because the ghost had died before the rock hardened, its body had been protected and preserved within it. But that still didn't tell Polly where the skeleton might be. To solve the mystery, she decided to look for clues in the rocks themselves, and it didn't take her long to find something interesting. As Polly peered closer, she saw that the different colored bands were made up of tiny particles of sediment, like sand and clay. Some of the layers had wavy lines running through them, while others looked flat, and the ghost soon explained. It said that these wavy lines represented times when the ocean had risen and fallen, bringing new sediments with it. The flat layers, meanwhile, had formed when there were no waves to disturb the water, such as during times of calm weather or big volcanic eruptions that blocked the sun. By matching these patterns with layers of rock further inland, geologists can estimate how high sea levels were in the past and use that to predict how deep the water was. And Polly remembered that the ghost had said it used to live in the shallows, where the water was warm and full of life. Therefore, its skeleton should be somewhere near the center of this rock, surrounded by the youngest layers of sediment. So Polly took her hammer and chisel and got to work. She chipped away at the rock until she had removed several centimeters, then stopped to admire her handiwork. And wouldn't you know it, right there in front of her, nestled among the colorful layers, was a jumble of bones. With trembling hands, Polly brushed off the dirt to reveal a complete skeleton. And as the last speck of sand fell away, the ghost cried out in joy and flew toward its body. It zipped back and forth, touching each bone and letting out a contented sigh. Polly watched as the ghost faded and faded until it was nothing but a memory. Then, breathing heavily from all her digging, she looked down at the skeleton. She had found so many cool things on her adventures. But this was the first time she had found a real, genuine, undiscovered fossil. So what will you discover next, Polly? Only time will tell. It's easy to think of deep time as an abstract concept, but sometimes history literally is buried all around us, waiting to be discovered. In this episode, we followed a young paleontologist named Polly Fossil as she uncovered a fossil of a prehistoric sea monster. Along the way, she learned about the different kinds of rocks and fossils and how to read the layers of the earth to understand what happened in the past. But the most important thing we want kids to take away from our show is that history is everywhere, and you never know what treasures might be hiding in plain sight. Hi, I'm the co-creator of a science show for kids. Our mission is to inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers. We believe that kids are naturally curious about the world around them, and our job is to provide the tools and inspiration to nurture that curiosity. Every fossil tells a story, and with your support, we can keep sharing those stories with even more kids. Your donation will help us reach more kids with our free educational videos. And as a thank you for your generosity, we'll send you a sticker set featuring some of our favorite prehistoric pals.